not a fan of the Pokemon anime. I know that's not an uncommon opinion, but it's not to say that I think it's bad, only that nowadays I don't find it all that exciting. In recent years, we've watched the X and Y and the Sun and Moon series in full, and I think the entire first season of Journeys. And I enjoyed all of that just fine, but the Pokemon anime just focuses on a particular version of the Pokemon world that I don't find all that interesting. Thankfully though, for the past few years, we've been getting a number of animated Pokemon series released on YouTube, and those have been wonderful. In late 2013, we got Pokemon Origins, a 4-part series retelling the story of Red and Green, but with Mega Evolution thrown in. 3 years later, in late 2016, we got Pokemon Generations. They all have such confusing names. There's like Origins and Generations and Evolutions, and like all of these names are also used by TCG expansions. In late 2016, we got Pokemon Generations, a series of 18 short episodes offering different perspectives on events from the main series games, from Red and Green to X and Y. Again, it was 3 more years before the next one, Twilight Wings. That series gave us new glimpses into Galar, with each of the 8 episodes focusing on a different character, but the whole series was also connected through a Corviknight flying taxi. And then it was only a year before Pokemon Evolutions was released. That's the most recent series with 8 episodes, each one focusing on a different generation. And I have to say, this one gets better and better as it goes, with the last 2 episodes being strong contenders for my favorite episodes of any animated series. All of these web series are really good, well written, beautifully animated, and they show us more of the events and characters from the main series games. But the best Pokemon animated media is something else still. I hesitate to even call it a series because while all of the other web series are self-contained, cohesive in their tone and their style, and largely focused on directly expanding the stories from the games, the PokéToons are defined by not being any of those things. I hope that you are familiar with PokéToons, but just in case you're not, this web series has so far only been released in Japanese on the Pokemon Kids TV Japan YouTube channel. There is no dub, although official subtitles are available in English. And each episode is entirely unique. They have independent stories, the animation and even the storytelling style are different in each one. For example, the very first PokéToon is Scraggy and Mimikyu Chase the Beans, where a Scraggy follows a trail of Pokebeans and ends up running into a Mimikyu. It follows the style of classic American animation like Tom and Jerry or Looney Tunes, not just in the look of the art itself, but also in being entirely wordless and in relying on slapstick comedy. Wait Here, Magikarp, about a Magikarp who awaits the return of a boy with a flute, is also wordless, but the animation is completely different. It's much softer. There is humor, but no slapstick. And the storytelling is done just as much by the score as it is by the visuals. When I was rewatching it the other day, I don't know if I picked up on this before and I forgot or not, but I noticed that the Magikarp, when the boy is not allowed to keep the Magikarp, instead of taking it back to the pond, they're actually taking it to a nursery. And all of the other kids that are showing up to pick Pokemon, they're going to the nursery to get their first Pokemon. And it's not a starter Pokemon. Yeah. So it shows an element of the role of a nursery. That not everyone starts with a starter Pokemon from the professor, right? You just go to wherever you can that's close by that has low-level Pokemon that you can pick from. Yeah. We also have the Pancham Who Wants to Be a Hero, about a Pancham who trains hard but is afraid of evolving, and a boy who goes looking for it to help his father. This one is narrated, almost like a legend or a folk tale, and it's animated more as a series of still images rather than something fluid. Or Summer Vacation Blizzard, where a group of children finds an abandoned Snorant far away from its habitat. It feels like a memory through its gentle score, its painterly animation, and its magical transitions. But we also have PokéToons that are more like standard anime, including the two that are my favorites. One of them is A Budding Dream, about a young girl who is very eager to prove to her parents, her mother in particular, that she is ready to venture out as a Pokémon trainer. Tsubomi herself is a very likable character, but you also get to know her parents, who are both loving in their own ways, and Chorobi, her father's Charizard, who once battled in the Pokemon League, but is now old and tired. Tsubomi gets frustrated not getting permission to start her adventure, so she strikes out on her own and gets into some trouble. What I love about this episode is how it shows an element that is present in the games, starting your Pokemon adventure, but in a completely different light. The main character is a kid who is keen to start, but maybe not quite ready. And you also have her parents, who already went on their journeys and now have their kid to worry about. It's both the beginning and the end of the journey. And like I said, Tsubomi gets herself into trouble, and I don't just mean with her parents. She struggles at the beginning. She isn't a Pokemon trainer prodigy like every player character in the main series. So the story feels familiar, but also a lot more natural, a lot more real. But the episode that is my absolute favorite is called Cozy Slugma House. It's about a little girl named Anna who goes to visit her grandparents and tries to befriend their Slugma, who it turns out is very shy. This one looks like if Studio Ghibli did a Pokemon short. What it shows us is a slice of life in what seems to be a smaller rural village. The characters here aren't obsessed with battling or with being Pokemon trainers, they're just living. But they're living with Pokemon. Anna's grandparents have an Eevee who seems to be just a house pet, basically a lap cat, but they also have a Minccino who takes care of the dusting, a Spinarak, an Ariados, and a Joltik who spins silk that the grandmother uses for knitting, a Haxorus who helps to chop wood, and of course, the Slugma whom Anna is eager to meet. Slugma is basically Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle, but without the blood contract. It's living in the pipes and keeping the house warm and providing the heat for cooking. We see an aspect of the Pokemon world that is compatible with what we see in the games, but that is largely absent from them. And I love seeing the people and the Pokemon living together and helping each other out. We actually see some of that in Legends, which is awesome, but for most games, the daily life of people and Pokemon isn't there. But trainer life isn't the only thing in the Pokemon world, even if it does have huge cultural significance. And it's when we see these other aspects of life that the world really starts to feel alive. PokéToons shine through their variety. Because each episode is independent, you never know what you're going to get, and in this case, that's a great thing. Maybe you'll see something closer to the games, like in A Budding Dream, or a fresh aspect of life in the Pokemon world like Wait Here Magikarp, or even something completely independent like Scraggy and Mimikyu. The story can be anything. The art style can be anything. And I think that gives the creators a lot more freedom to make something that is truly wonderful in every sense of that word. There are only two things that are consistent across all PokéToons. The first is that they are aimed at children. They air on a 4Kids YouTube channel, after all. So most of the time, the main characters are children, about 10 years old or younger. Adults may be around, but we're not seeing their stories, so these aren't edgy or serious or hard-hitting stories. But, as with all good media for children, and this is the second thing that they have in common, these cartoons have heart. They are wholesome, emotionally mature. Anyone watching can get something out of them. I'm a very unemotional person, and even I'm touched by these cartoons. Unfortunately, the episodes haven't come out on any kind of strict schedule. Scraggy and Mimikyu came out in June of 2020, and it was almost a year before the Pancham Who Wants to Be a Hero came out in May of 2021. But since then, they have been releasing more or less every month or two. The most recent one came out right at the end of 2021, so we're about due for a new one any day now. I hope that if you haven't already watched all of the PokéToons, you will go do that right now. I have the whole playlist linked in the description. You can wait till the end of the video first, though. I also hope that one day we will get something that is like PokéToons, but for an older audience, so that we can see more of life with Pokemon. I'd love to see episodes about teenagers, about working professionals, about going to college, or about delinquents who get recruited into Team Rocket or something. While we know there's crime in the Pokemon world, we can't only focus on the good stuff. There are so many stories in the Pokemon world waiting to be told. I hope we get to hear them one day. For now, I will keep watching PokéToons and practicing my Japanese so that maybe one day I can watch one without captions and actually understand everything. Oh, maybe the next time that one comes out, I will watch it without captions first.
Oh, but
as a challenge.
I can't watch it with you.
Well, of course I'll watch it a second time. And if you haven't already, you can listen to my short story, Cotton Down, which explores a bit of that niche of mature stories in the Pokemon world. Thank you for watching. Thank you to all of the Libros who support me through Patreon or YouTube channel memberships, especially luxury patron Ethan from Chicago, and this month's new patrons, Freebird Nerd, Duffy Loner 64, and Wispy White Smoke. Oh, and I think I forgot to give a shout out to Twisha, who became a channel member last month. Thank you all so much for your support. I will see you in the next chapter.